From the national newsroom of the Canadian Press, I'm Don Mitchell. Liberal MP Freeland says she's stepping down as the Prime Minister's special representative for the reconstruction of Ukraine and will also leave Parliament in the coming weeks. Freeland's announcement on social media comes the same day Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky appointed her as an unpaid advisor on economic development. In his own post, Zelensky says Ukraine needs to strengthen what he called its internal resilience. Freeland has long expressed support for Ukraine after Russia's invasion and has said the country could become an economic juggernaut by taking up the opportunities it missed after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Carney is expected to meet with members of the Coalition of the Willing tomorrow in an attempt to accelerate a negotiated peace plan for Ukraine, nearly 4 years after Russia's full-scale invasion. Carney arrived in Paris today to meet up with Ukraine's allies and pursue security agreements to prevent Russia from repeating its invasion if a ceasefire deal is reached. The PM's itinerary for tomorrow shows he is to meet with NATO Secretary Mark Rutte before the coalition meeting hosted by French President Emmanuel Macron. Deposed Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro and his wife were arraigned in a U.S. court today in New York. Both are facing drug trafficking charges after U.S. military officials captured them in an intense operation in the middle of the night this past weekend in Venezuela. ABC's Aaron Katursky has more from outside the court in New York.
Nicolas Maduro pleaded not guilty to the 4-count indictment, but in doing so, he said, "I am innocent. I am not guilty. I am a decent man. I am still president of my country." So Maduro is also defiantly saying that he remains the elected president of Venezuela, and he said he will go free.
U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth told a crowd of sailors and shipbuilders in Newport News today that close to 200 Americans took part in the raid on Venezuela's capital city Saturday morning. Alberta Premier Daniel Smith says the American capture of Maduro underscores the urgency of building oil pipelines to export Canadian oil to new markets. In a statement, Smith says the recent events emphasizes the importance that Canada expedite the development of pipelines to diversify oil export markets. In November, the Premier signed an agreement with Prime Minister Carney, paving the way to a potential Indigenous co-owned bitumen pipeline and to claw back some environmental policies. And statistics from Alberta Health Services show the number of amputations due to frostbite saw a stark uptick last winter in Edmonton, from 81 amputation procedures in 2023 to 120 in 2024. Nurse Beth Klingenberg is the manager of health services at Hope Mission and says a majority of frostbite cases involve Edmonton's homeless population.
It's the time of year that we do see quite a lot more cases coming in, and for sure, I would say year over year, then there's been more cases happening each time. Klingenberg
adds the emerging problem is likely due to increasing complex issues like affordability and drug crises. This is the Canadian Press. In sports, Canada is on the ice right now, hoping to salvage a third-place showing at the World Junior Hockey Championship. The Canadians facing Finland today after failing to reach the final due to a 6-4 decision to Czechia in the semifinals last night in Minnesota. The Czechs will face Sweden tonight for gold. 5 games in the NHL with 2 Canadian teams in action. The Ottawa Senators are home to the Detroit Red Wings. Ottawa's Tim Stützle enters play on a 12-game point streak. Red Wings forward Patrick Kane is 2 goals away from the 500 mark for his career. Meanwhile, the Calgary Flames will entertain the Seattle Kraken. The Toronto Raptors and the Atlanta Hawks will play for the second time in 3 days tonight at Scotiabank Arena. The NBA Raptors beating the visiting Hawks 134-117 on Saturday. The Raps are 4th in the Eastern Conference standings. And Toronto FC has acquired some extra cap space for the coming season, picking up $300,000 U.S. in allocation money from Minnesota United in exchange for an international roster spot. From the Canadian Press, I'm Don Mitchell.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. For more of today's top stories, visit thecanadianpressnews.ca.